So today we're going to talk about something that's on all of our minds in different ways, using new data types and large language models to strengthen destination insights. In my brief time today, I'm going to focus on two developments that we believe have a significant impact on how DMOs gather, analyze, and act on visitor intelligence. First, we'll talk about how combining transaction data with mobile location signals can create a more resilient foundation for understanding visitor behavior as access to mobility data continues to evolve. And second, we'll talk about the practical adoption of AI, how it's accelerating analytics, helping tourism researchers answer complex questions, and most importantly, uncovering actionable insights in just a few minutes, whereas before it potentially took days. We'll explore these capabilities being applied today and what they could mean for the future of destination research, operations, and marketing. So before we dive in, I'll give you a 2-minute version of who Azira is and what exactly we do for travel and tourism professionals. Azira is a location intelligence platform that's built on top of 13 trillion global location and mobility signals that we clean, normalize, and activate in what we call the flywheel solution. So the flywheel starts with Azira Insights, which provides DMOs reports, insights, analytics, help you better understand your visitors and your competitors and uncover opportunities. Azira Audience allows you to transform those insights into a targetable audience segment of incremental visitors. So the insights, might show you something about, might reveal an origin market that you weren't necessarily as aware of. You might realize an origin market is more valuable than you thought, and then you can build an Azira audience out of that origin market. Then Azira campaigns allow you to activate those segments across all the media channels where they're likely to see your ad, whether that's mobile devices, CTV, or digital out of home. And finally, Azira measurement allows you to see the ROI via incremental visitors and in the very near future, via incremental credit and debit transaction spend at your destination. I'm also excited to announce that we're launching our AI-enabled platform, Azira One for Tourism vertical, which we'll show a little bit more of towards the end of the presentation. Azira is powered by mobile location data. That's still the core of our data set. These are, mobile applications. When a mobile application, allows you to access your location, that location gets shared. Azira, with our partners, ingests that mobile location data and enriches it with various demographic attributes, behavioral affinities, what other places was that device seen, to capture a complete picture of a visitor. So this lets you uncover insights about your destination. So you can see what devices are joining at different attractions. You can discover how visitor behavior is changing over time, where people go, where they come from, how that evolves over time. You can understand different patterns in travel, origin markets, international visitors. You can, anticipate travel trends, revealed visitor demographics, what kind of people are coming, and understand, where they go and what they do once they're in the destination market. Where are they shopping? Where are they eating? It's an incredibly rich data set, and it's really exciting. Hey, Simon, are you in? We're still not getting audio from you, I don't think. All right, so then we'll continue. Okay, so what I'm going to discuss today is consistent with what's top of mind for a lot of DMOs. In a survey that we just conducted, our destination marketing strategy and intelligence survey, two findings stood out to us. So first is that 44% of tourism leaders express some concern about data accuracy and availability. This makes a lot of sense as privacy regulations and access to mobile data continues to evolve. Destinations need a more resilient foundation for understanding visitor behavior. We can't just rely on mobile location data forever. It's not the same signal that it used to be. So we'll explore here how to integrating other data types with that existing signal can help strengthen the foundation. The second interesting point from this survey was that 67% of tourism leaders have not yet adopted large language models at scale. And that represents a significant opportunity. Generative AI can make complex analytics faster and more accessible and help destination teams answer important questions and uncover insights in minutes. So let's talk about it. So truth is that the industry was built on volume over value for years. The location intelligence industry placed a large emphasis on data volume, more signals, greater reach, more impressions. And before GDPR, roughly 80% of smartphones worldwide were sharing location signals accessible to advertisers, with mobile data so widely available that the industry had not much incentive to consider how access to those signals might change over time. But volume alone doesn't necessarily create meaningful intelligence. What matters is the quality, the resilience, and the diversity of the data foundation, as well as the analytics and insights built on top of it. So as access to mobility data continues to evolve in light of these regulations, the industry has to look beyond the mobile signal itself. And we think transaction data is the main way that we can create a more resilient foundation for that. So this is the twist. The volume the industry got comfortable relying on really has disappeared at this point. Only 14% of iOS devices now share a usable location signal, and only 45% of Android devices do. And it's estimated that's unfortunately opened the door to fraud, especially when we've spent too long valuing volume over quality. And it's estimated that 50% of programmatic advertising is affected by that fraud. So you've got a volume obsessed industry that's running on a shrinking supply of real signals. And that scarcity creates the perfect breeding ground for this interference, this manipulation and fraud that fills the gap. And this really is showing up at scale as somebody who works with the mobile signal data every single day. So how can we build a more accurate and resilient data platform? One that's privacy compliant and future-proof and not solely reliant on mobile data. Well, we've already hinted at this. The one side of it is the diversified data approach. So integrate the consent-driven mobility data with other data sources that are privacy compliant, for example, transaction data. And the other is to have a unified data spine. We need to be able to connect the devices we see in the mobile location data with the cards that we see in the transaction data, credit and debit cards. And then we also need to be able to connect that to our rich source of demographics and other metadata and enrichments that we do on top of that. So that really comes down to an identity spine, linking these signals. And that's exactly what we're doing here at Azira with our unified data set. Okay, so here is one of the solutions that we've been developing. So I'll just pause this for a second. So that we're looking at a destination analysis that we did for Oahu. We're looking at the rest of Hawaii. And what you're seeing color-coded here are not mobile trips, but credit card trips. So these are zip codes. And the zip code is the home zip code of the credit card. And the color coding of the map shows how many credit cards moved between, say, Hilo on the Big Island and Oahu. And so we can drill into that even more. We can click on a zip code in this map, and we can see the total number of unique cards that originated from this zip code and made a trip to Oahu in May 2026. The total number of trips that those cards made, so some of the cards traveled more than once. The average length of stay, so people on average stayed about 2 days. And the average amount that they spent. So this is, something that we can enrich well above and beyond the mobile signal data. We actually know what those credit cards spent when they were on Oahu, and we can measure the total spend. Now, the total spend is just what's observed in this panel. The actual spend would be higher than that, but it's a baseline for extrapolation. And you can imagine that, there's a really significant opportunity to calculate a meaningful return on investment for your media spend with this type of data. The nice thing about this data is that it also comes with really rich demographics that are sourced from Experian. We have the income brackets of the credit cards. And just to be clear, these are not demographics of that zip code in general. These are demographics associated specifically with the 1,100 cards that we saw moving. We have age, gender, ethnicity, and homeowner probability. So that's a very exciting thing. And then I just want to emphasize that this data is nationwide. So this is the same analysis, but for every zip code in the United States. And what we're specifically looking at is cards that were seen in that zip code and also made a transaction in Oahu in May 2026. So this is a nice visualization. It gives an overview of the data set. And for us, this is a very exciting direction. All right. So resilient data platforms. Hey, Simon, you want to try again, or are you still struggling?
Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Awesome.
Amazing. Sorry about that. I have literally connected to every device I have at home in order to get some audio through. But Nick, I've been hearing you and it's been going great. So thank you for holding the fort down. Okay, so we have resilient data platforms. I know you were going to touch on that a little bit more, and then I'd be happy to jump right in.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah. So as I mentioned, generative AI and LLMs are absolutely transformative technologies, and they're going to change how DMOs gain access to critical insights. And so what used to require manual reporting and analyst support is evolving into something that is a lot more intuitive and conversational and can lead more directly to actionable insights. Integrating LLMs into location data infrastructure transforms the process of location intelligence into a conversation. So to demonstrate this transformation, I'd like to introduce you to Azira One, the first conversational AI platform purpose-built for location intelligence. Azira One combines large language models with Azira's award-winning privacy-first location data infrastructure to transform how organizations explore, analyze, and act on location intelligence. It's like giving every member of your team their own personal data analyst. You talk to it in plain English, and you can go back and forth in a conversational style, and it can access the data and do analytics in real time. You simply ask the question and you get an answer. So let's take a look at how much time you can actually save, starting with a common analytics use case.
Yeah, we can look at that classical workflow. Imagine a few members on your team. They want to know, for example, which cities are my visitors coming from, or what are the peak months for my destination. And here's typically what that would look like. We're assuming this process has to start from scratch. The timeline might look something like this roughly, and an analyst has to pull the data from scattered and different sources. They have to clean and structure that data for analysis. They have to get some surface basic insights. And once that is complete, they build the reports, they have the charts, the visualizations, which you can then finally review with your team and act upon it. So, typically, if you have a rough estimate, it may take 2 to 3 working days. And that's, let's say, if everything goes smoothly and without any hiccups. What we're seeing with these new capabilities, these new tools, these new solutions, with the same 2 questions, if we have the same starting point, now an agent can gather, pull the clean, normalized data sets based on the query automatically, essentially. And then you can have an agent analyze that. It interrogates the data for you. It writes custom code if it needs to do that. And then that same agent delivers a built out report with charts and visualizations that make it simpler to digest that data. And then your team can grab all of that information that has been automated and act on it. You can actually turn those findings, those insights, into an actual strategy and a plan, which with these new tools, we can crunch all that time from what we said before, 2 to 3 working days, to something like a few minutes, just a couple of minutes, to and saving a bunch of hours, really a couple of business days from just opening up a data set to actually being able to get a plan implemented, which is nothing to sneeze at. It could be a huge improvement for a lot of smaller teams out there and across the country who don't necessarily have someone who is perhaps data savvy and or even has the time, even if they are someone who uses Tableau or Power BI. Really, nowadays there's very little time to kind of wait on that data to be crunched to then get it to your team to actually look at. Um, so this can really save a ton of time for those teams out there.
Yep. So we can take a look at what this looks like in action. So this is Azira One, our AI conversational agent. So in this particular case, we're looking at the Dallas DMA, and the report has already been generated, and now the analytics agent is given access to it. The user is asking, which cities are my visitors coming from? The AI is pulling the tables from the database, it's executing analytics, and then it's able to generate an analysis. So obviously most of the people are coming from within the DMA. Actually, in a more recent iteration, it already knows to exclude that. And then it has various analytics on where the visitors are coming from outside the DMA. Looking at the next one. So now, what are the peak months for my destination? And the answer is that there's no particular peak. This is a major metropolitan area and it gets a lot of visitors year round. And so actually the more interesting aspect of this is that there is a relatively non-seasonal visitor profile going to the Dallas DMA.
Yeah. So if we can then go from this point and really get into implementing, our insights, we luckily being able now with these tools been able to save some time and actually get into strategizing and creating our campaigns. We can dig a little deeper, and from there, for example, ask what campaign strategy can I run on? What this could look like is, for example, our team reviews insights to plan the targeting, which specific origin markets we want to look at, which channels we want to activate on. Our team can select specific audiences based on where historically we're seeing a lot of really great visitation from specific demographics, based on also now that we have this great transaction data, we have a really rich, deep demographic information, and also behavioral interest. We can still rely on a lot of that day-to-day activity from geolocation data to understand what kind of businesses our visitors typically frequent, so that we can also use that for business development on our business side as well. And then we can determine which media channels and formats our strategy is being implemented on, build recommended media plans and when it would be best to activate. Obviously, depending on seasonality, depending on when we typically see those surges in visitation. Obviously, also depends on a lot of those long weekends or holiday weekends that we see every year. But that is going to historically take a little bit more time than we have a lot of times to plan for. That could be 5 to 7 business days. You know, nowadays we are sometimes sliding. We have so many things on our plates. It's typically going to, between calls, going to take us some time to get the strategy built out. So that's where we go in and try to save some time with these new tools. With Azira One, what it allowed, saving so much time in the digging up of insights and crunching all of that data. We can shift all of that time savings into better and hopefully more strategic planning. So if we were to ask the same question of ourselves, of our data, we can, have the agent review the data, have that a 0-1 agent choose optimal audiences based on visitation patterns. We can have that same agent provide us with suggestions or feedback on specific plans, determining which media channels or what formats might be best for what we're trying to do, because of both the richness of the geolocation data, seeing where historically our visitors are coming from and where they visit while they're in our destination, as well as now with a lot of this transaction data, being able to see perhaps where a lot of those dollars are really being spent across our destination. So using that information, using those insights, how can we better deliver our messaging so that we can push through specific ideas, or better promote specific stakeholders in our destination. And all of this being drafted by an agent, drafted by something like Azira One, so that your team can leverage all of these ideas, strategize on top of it, and finalize a lot of those concepts much more quickly than we currently can without some of these large language models. So something that would have taken, again, perhaps a week, week and a half, currently we can do within perhaps a day or two, from scratch all the way to actually getting those plans activated and running. So there's a lot of that time savings that we can shift towards strategic work, more planning with our team, and less crunching numbers. So what does that look like, Nick, on our end now?
Yeah, so this is what it looks like in action. So at the simplest case, you can just ask, what strategy should my campaign run on? It doesn't have to be that simple. You can ask a much more detailed question than that. You can iterate after the first draft comes back. You can say, oh, I like that. I don't like that. Let's switch channels. We already have a campaign that's targeting college age kids. Like, let's try something else for this campaign. It's completely customizable, and it all happens entirely with the conversation. So you really are in control of that, and it comes up with a complete plan. Now, the future iteration of this is to actually connect the Insights AI, which you're seeing here, with the audience generation engine and the campaign, so that you can go all the way through, where you could take these insights, and if you had an account set up with Azira, you could take that directly to building an audience. You could export that audience and run it somewhere else, or you could run it with Azira.
Amazing. That's great. Thank you, Nick. So before we take any questions, and we're very excited to chat with you all. Just a quick recap. As we've mentioned, we're launching our new AI platform. It's called Azira One for tourism. This version of the platform has tourism focused skills and knowledge packages built into it, so that you can speak our tourism industry lingo to it. You can it speaks the language of DMOs, and it provides analysis, it provides insights and recommendations that are most relevant to our industry and to your strategic planning. So thank you all for catching up on our newest developments. Now we would love to hear your questions and your feedback. So Sarah, I don't know if you have any questions lined up there in the chat.
Yeah, I personally actually have a question. Where would you say that current DMOs are at in terms of like adopting AI, and what do you think they should be doing at this point?
Yeah. Well, I can give my version of that, and if Simon has anything to add.
Yeah.
So I think that there's kind of there's two tiers of adoption. Most people are doing the first version, and relatively few people are doing the second version, and that's what the gap we're trying to fill with is 0.1. So the first version is, you're talking to ChatGPT, you're bouncing ideas off of them, you're trying to develop your campaign strategy, you're asking questions about, where do visitors going to Dallas come from? And ChatGPT gives good answers. Sometimes they're better than other times, but it's getting better all the time. It does web searches, it pulls external data. But what ChatGPT doesn't have access to is the big data, the billions, trillions of pings from mobile location data, the tens of millions of transactions, the credit card data. So the second level of agentic AI is to give sophisticated tools to the AI so it can go and generate a view of the big data sets that have really deep insights trapped inside of them, and pull some of that data. Now the downside, anyone who's really been like a power user of these AI tools knows that if you try to drop in a spreadsheet that's too big, the AI can't digest it. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve here. We want to take the huge data that's way too big for the AI to read, and allow the AI to construct its own query against that data using code. It generates code on the fly, runs that code to pull a subset of that data to do an aggregation, basically creating like pivot tables and averages and doing the job of a data analyst, pulling that down into a digestible, reasonably sized spreadsheet that it can then read into its memory and then produce a sensible answer on top of that. So it essentially eliminates hallucination. The AI it's grounded in the reality that we are dealing with in terms of transaction and mobile location data. And that is extremely powerful. That's 10x. That's on the next level compared to chatting with ChatGPT about what your ideas are, which is still valuable. But this we see a lot more potential in the big data queries.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Simon, I saw that you were about to answer another question in the chat.
Yeah, we had this question from Road to Morocco tours. Let me see. Just trying to pull it up here. Says here a lot of destination intelligence tools are built around DMOs and organizations with significant data resources. How can smaller tourism businesses and emerging destinations realistically use transaction mobility data without having a large research or analytics budget?
Well, that's exactly why we built this tool. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to democratize that, to allow people to have a conversation instead of a data analyst.
Yeah, it leverages, and even for those who may be new to the industry, right? It opens up new opportunities. It can potentially, get you up to speed with a lot of what our industry specifically deals with. We've integrated a lot of that industry knowledge into the platform. So even if we do start with a very simple query, like for example, who are my uh, target audiences, or where are my origin markets, my feeder markets coming from, um, it can start there, but it can also, because of how these large language models kind of start to connect conversations together, it can provide you with a lot of options that you may not be thinking about right off the top of your head. So even if you're new to the industry, or you have been around for a while but are someone who's wearing a bunch of hats, and you're not necessarily a research person or an insights person, but you do need to manage that marketing campaign, or your marketing team, you'll be able to get a lot out of this tool with initial queries that can build onto something much larger and more strategic for your destination. Do we have any other questions?
I am not seeing any. I feel like you guys went above and beyond answering like kind of the main differences between the zero one and like the general purpose AI. I think that was very, very helpful. So if you guys are good, might be good to start wrapping this up.
Great. Well, thanks, Sarah. Again, my apologies for my technical difficulties on my end. Glad I could still join some of the call here. Obviously, for those of you who would like to find out more about our transaction data, now available in the platform, uh, and also our newly announced Azira One AI tool, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Simon at Azira.com, and Nick is also very kindly joined us today on this call. He's typically tackling some very tough questions on our platform, and building out these really amazing new tools that we're excited to promote now. But Nick, is there any are there any additional insights you would like to share with us before we leave today?
No, please reach out by email anytime. I'm happy to, answer individual questions. I think it's just an incredibly exciting time in the industry. We have, this change in the data and this change in the technology, and it's a very, very active time for developers and for my team. And we're really excited to be sharing what we're working on, hear what other people are working on, hear what how other people are leveraging their AI. So yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, my email's on the screen.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody.